Oh my god, I am so sorry for that. Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Skwatter of the Sprites Templar, back finally with Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective Volume 3. My god, this game has put me through the ringer already and I haven't even played it yet. I had to reinstall ExoDOS because I deleted the all-important DOSBox.conf file, and that took like 2 hours last night. And then I had to find a different recording software because Shadowplay is awful, and it would cut off half of the video and half of my dialogue when I was speaking. So that's the whole explanation of why it took a while comparative to other videos, or at least my most recent upload schedule, because in times previous I would take over a year off, and no more. The game is afoot. Alright, here we go. Ram, damn, slam. Alright, the instructions, Holmes introduction. Boo, ba, boo, ba, boo, ba. Just testing my my audio sync with movement on the screen and how my voice syncs up. Oh god. Well, you can tell that I've been put through it all. Alright, so I'm using OBS for this now. And if this all works out, then I might use OBS all the time, because it seems to be working pretty well. I don't believe it. I keep having to wrestle with GameFAQs and having it display my walkthrough in text mode. So, you know what? I am just going to go to GameFAQs right here. Booyah. And I am going to search for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective Volume. Come on now. I search for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Why doesn't it put 1, 2, and 3 all right next to each other? Do I have to go to a next page? Come on, you bastard. Here we go. Guides. And guide. Alrighty. So, let's do it like this. Alrighty. Booyah, booyah, booyah. So, the instructions are all pretty much the same.
If you need help, all you have to do is ask. And this, dear player, is the place to do exactly that.
Alright. We've already seen that, and the Holmes' introduction is essentially the same. I'll just give you a bit of a taste of how much better the video quality is on this DOS game than it is on the TurboGrafx.
London is not a beautiful city. Under the soot that covers its buildings is a teeming mass of 4 million souls trying to survive, mostly off of each other. You see it in the paper every day.
Pretty good stuff, huh? And this is just him explaining all of these weirdos over here. And look, the magnifying glass even magnifies. Ooh.
Oh, Porky. I hope we'll be seeing more of him.
Alrighty, so without further annoying and boring ado, let's get to the solicitous solicitor. Booyah.
I believe the inspector may have an interesting case for us, Holmes.
I told you, Watson, I am tormented by a migraine and I need to take my cure.
I'll take only a moment of your time, Mr. Holmes.
Go on then, Inspector, but make a stab at the essence, please.
All right. A Mr. Melvin Tuttle, a junior partner with the law firm of Sloane, Swarthmore and Cartwright, dropped dead of a heart attack yesterday. We believe it was poison.
Oh, yes, Sloane, Swarthmore and Cartwright is one of the most prestigious law firms in London.
Pray let him continue, Watson.
You may want to know that I have spoken with the partners. Sir Sidney Sloane says he never arrives before noon. Mr. Swarthmore was at his morning appointment at Bell's Baths, and curiously enough, Mr. Cartwright began an unscheduled and indefinite leave of absence just 2 days before.
My temples are splitting, Inspector. Motive?
Another solicitor by the name of Harold Diggs was passed over for promotion 3 months ago. The position went to Mr. Tuttle. Diggs felt he was far more qualified, and so he resigned.
Ah, the jealous colleague. Certainly a motive for murder.
Is there anything else, Inspector?
I would suggest picking up a copy of the Morning Times. And if you're interested, I've got the contents of Tuttle's desk down at the yard.
Thank you, Inspector. Now, if I may work on my recovery in peace.
Well, Sherlock, that's what you get for being addicted to cocaine there, bud. You're going through withdrawal.
Yeah, they always say that in order to get rid of a hangover, you need another drink. It's the vicious circle over and over again. Alrighty. What an astounding mystery we have to solve after reading a walkthrough and not really solving it myself at all. Alright, so the walkthrough is not published by Sega this time. It's published by a different group of, by an entirely independent writer. So he shows things a little differently. He doesn't say anything about looking in the Times, so I guess I don't need to do that necessarily. So, number one, the things that I need to do here are send the Baker Street Irregulars to Bell's Baths. Alright. Bell's Baths. Let's see what we've got here. Bell's Baths, a private bathing club for the leisure class. Quiet.
Met an old salt who says Swarthmore and Livingston was here this morning going through Tutler's locker. Whatever they was looking for, they didn't find it because Swarthmore was cussing up a storm.
Interesting. Let's see what happens if we go there.
What can I do for you, sir?
J.D.
I'm
Vance.
investigating the murder of Melvin Tuttle. I don't understand.
Mr. Henry Swarthmore is a member of this club, is he not?
Yes?
I understand he was here yesterday. Did he meet with anyone?
I never pry into my customers' private affairs.
Was Tuttle a member?
Yes. I'm afraid I have no more time for your questions. I'm a very busy man. Good day.
Now, you should have come to old Jack Jensen in the first place. Swarthmore met Mr. Livingston here yesterday morning.
Cedric Livingston, the builder?
That's him. He owns the place. Used to be the first mate on the Glenda sailing the China trade. I was shipmates with him. Back in '58, the captain met with an unfortunate accident, or so the story said. Mr. Livingston brought the Glenda through, and the owners gave him a fat reward and a captain's cut to boot. That's when he quits the sailor's life. Anyways, yesterday morning, Mr. Rake clears out Mr. Tuttle's locker and brought the stuff to his office. Mr. Swarthmore and Mr. Livingston was there waiting for a look-see.
So Swarthmore and Livingston are friends?
Thick as thieves.
What were they looking for?
Don't know. Didn't find it, though. Swarthmore was in a dither.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen.
Thanks is lovely. A few bobs better.
We talked to J.D. Vance earlier there, and I believe that the other gentleman, that gentleman there, was Rashida Tlaib. Yeah, looked like her. Yeah. Alrighty. Boingo. I like how it's got a little progress bar, like it's an old Windows 3.1 video, just telling you how long the video is. Alright. Let's send the Baker Street Irregulars to Heathcliff August. Okay. Maybe we'll get a better score this time. Heathcliff August. Let's see what we've got on him. August Heathcliff is a successful textiles magnate and the president of Heathcliff & Son Limited, based in Manchester. Curiously, Mr. Heathcliff has 6 daughters but no sons. Needs to get a little more testosterone. Send him on over.
No one came to the door, so we went sniffing round for ourselves and found an envelope from Tuttle that smelled like lilac. Well, it's better than smelling like feces, that's for true.
Mr. Heathcliff, I understand that Sloane, Swarthmore and Cartwright has been preparing contracts for your textile business.
What's going on here? Those contracts were to be kept highly confidential.
And they shall continue to be, sir. I'm only interested in how the firm handled the negotiating and execution.
Well, suppose there's no harm in that. Some 8 months ago, Sir Sidney Sloane undertook the negotiations. Mr. Cartwright drew up the contracts. This whole thing surrounds a top-secret textile merger, which is more than I should mention.
My lips are buttoned.
I would appreciate that, Dr. Watson. I dealt exclusively with Mr. Cartwright throughout the contract stage. Mr. Swarthmore stepped in at the final hour, which I did find a bit surprising. His alterations, however, had no material effect on the final documents. That contract, as I said, is highly confidential. I would appreciate it if you did not read it.
I have no intention of reading it, sir. But I would like to keep the envelope, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Mr. Holmes adores scented stationery.
Mr. Holmes is a pansy, that's for certain. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Alright, next is Visit Lestrade, Inspector. Alright, booyah. Inspector Lestrade. We've already looked him up, so...
Well, Holmes, here are the contents of Tuttle's desk, just like I promised. A folder containing information on textile contracts, very tedious. 2 trust files with lists of properties, stocks and bonds, one for the British Museum and one for a Richard Mainhart. And a list of various properties that they owned at one time or another. Disraeli O'Brien's name's on top.
What's this? A key from Bell's Baths.
And 1 gold locket, which says, to VM with love, MT.
How sweet. Is there a label on the box?
Yes, J.W. Benson Limited.
Curious. Here's a bill for a room from the Knights Arms Hotel. From the amount of it, it appears to be a monthly rate.
A monthly rate? Looks like whoever goes to these bathhouses likes them. Sort of like Eric Swalwell, that is, when he's not getting railed by Chinese spies, which makes him a traitor to the United States. Alrighty. Let's see. Visit Monroe, Virginia. Booyah. Virginia Monroe. Booyah. Who's this? Nothing on file. Go there anyways.
Tuttle, that popinjay!
Papa, please!
Virginia, that will be quite enough. Tuttle had the unmitigated gall to ask for my daughter's hand in marriage, and I forbade her to see him. She has had utterly no contact with him since. That I can assure you.
That's not true!
You defied my orders? How dare you! Young lady, have a good mind and
Mr. Monroe, please. Let your daughter speak.
Beat her.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Mel and I met almost every Sunday in St. James Park and corresponded frequently. As soon as he had attained the position my father required, we were to be married. He was made a junior partner only last week. I think this might be important to you, sir.
Thank you, Miss Monroe. Most intriguing.
Alright, so that's focusing on that quite a bit there, bud. Sometimes 8 is not enough. That's what I'm saying. A good heavy hand makes them a good housewife. Okay. Monroe, Virginia. Visit Murray HR. Oh, there we go. I think we've already seen them. Yes. So maybe H.R. Murray is the head chemist at the criminology lab. He decided on his chosen profession when he was a child. His beloved older brother was murdered, and the police never found the culprit. Old H.R. is a tremendous source of information, though his thoughts do tend to ramble a bit. There is, however, no better mind when it comes to interpreting the physical evidence of a crime. I think I've read that probably like several times nowadays. So, let's see. Booyah.
Professor Murray? Whitson! Holmes! What are you two young sleuths working on today?
The Melvin Tuttle case, and it's Holmes and Watson, sir.
That's what I said, didn't I? Now, the Yard delivered a whole pile of evidence for this one. Toffee, tea, tobacco, pipe. It sounds like my breakfast this morning. Although right now I'd prefer some fish and chips.
What did you discover, H.R.?
Toffee. C12H22 oil 93%.
Layman's terms, did you discover any poison?
The toffee and the tobacco were merely toffee and tobacco. Now the tea contained the slightest trace, but more significantly, there was a higher concentration on the lip of the cup.
What about the pipe?
The tip of the stem.
What sort of poison is it, Professor?
China berry, a paralyzing nerve poison. Just traces can stop the heart permanently. It smells faintly of lilac. But you might read up on it in a book at the London Library.
Where would one obtain such a poison, Professor?
One might strike up an acquaintance with a South Sea Aborigine.
It is not then readily available in London?
No.
Thank you, Professor, for your time.
How much time was it, gentlemen?
God, that guy's annoying. Yeah, no. Anything from China's bad. Yeah. Especially from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which created COVID and then released it on all of us. Bastards. So, Sino-Rhino, the Shanghai Shivers. Alrighty. Visit Porter Margaret. See what we got. Nothing on file. Well, call Elise.
I suppose everyone would say that Melvin Tuttle was immensely charming. Perfect manners, perfect dresser, perfectly eager to please. Why, every young woman he met was absolutely swept away by him. He was just perfect.
And what would you say, Mrs. Porter?
I would say he was perfectly nauseating. The man was more calculating than a mathematics table.
Why do you suppose Mr. Tuttle was raised to the executive level?
That baffles me more than life itself. But I do know that Mr. Swarthmore and Mr. Cartwright would have jointly made that decision. If anyone had asked my opinion, which of course they never do, I would have recommended promoting Mr. Diggs. He was an excellent solicitor who produced outstanding work for over 11 years.
Am I to assume that Mr. Tuttle's work wasn't up to snuff?
No, he was industrious, but thoroughly unexceptional.
How did Diggs and Mr. Tuttle get along?
Well, their relationship was quite strained. But who can blame poor Mr. Diggs being passed over for that promotion and then... no, I shouldn't gossip.
Scuttlebutt is perfectly acceptable under the circumstances, Mrs. Porter.
Well, Mr. Diggs was in love with Miss Spring, who was in love with Melvin Tuttle, who was in love with every woman, even, I believe, Mrs. Cartwright.
Mrs. Whitney Cartwright?
Yes. He used to escort her to various society functions at the request of Mr. Cartwright. In fact, just yesterday I posted a letter to her from Mr. Tuttle.
Did you post anything else of interest?
No. Just contracts. 5 to textile firms in Germany, 1 to August Heathcliff, 4 to textile firms in Manchester. It was a most hectic day, not even counting Mr. Tuttle's dropping over.
Interesting. And, well, I would have to say that mademoiselle, quote-unquote, had a big neck, broad shoulders, and I bet from the grainy video footage, she had some meaty mitts on her. Meaty mitts on her. Methinks that maybe she's not a she there. Disgusting. Right. All right. Tuttle, Melvin, off we go. What do we got here? Nothing on file. All right.
My word. Someone was looking for something.
And it appears that perhaps they didn't find it.
Look, Holmes.
Correspondence from Mrs. Cartwright, dated 22 June. Darling, I cannot believe that it is over. Please, please come to see me. I love you beyond all caring, Faye. Heavens to mercy.
What are those other letters, Watson?
They all have the same return address. 25 Chichester Street, SW, from someone with the initial VM. They seem to be dated back as far as mid-December.
Read one, Watson, will you?
Certainly. This one's dated 10 March. Your high spirits Sunday give me great hope. I believe in you and know that you will one day overcome Father's objections. But if it should take longer than you would desire, know that I will wait for you. I will wait for you forever. Ginny. Good heavens, Holmes. I do believe young Tuttle was just a stud horse in disguise.
Interesting. Well, go ahead and read that letter, Watson. You know that I'm actually illiterate. All right. Now it's time to visit Walker Brenda. Huh? Not a whole lot of time for anybody.
Poor Mr. Tuttle. Did you know I was one of the last living souls to spend time with him? Well, Mr. Tuttle, Mr. Swarthmore and I were working late on contracts, you see. Well, that's why I took the day off. When I found out about the news, I was shocked.
What contracts were you working on, Miss Walker?
Oh, I wouldn't know, would I? I mean, all I do is type. Never read a word of it. No, Mr. Tuttle, or should I say poor Mr. Tuttle, asked me to stay late to help with some last-minute revising. Well, Mr. Swarthmore chipped in and we got the job done.
Where were the contracts going?
Oh, I wouldn't know, would I? No, well, it seems a bit unusual, but Mr. Swarthmore typed the envelopes himself and handed them directly to Mr. Tuttle. The whole thing was very hush, you see.
You were there alone with Mr. Swarthmore and Mr. Tuttle?
Oh, yes. Imagine me alone with those two handsome men. Of course, Mr. Swarthmore is a bit intimidating, but he's a bachelor.
Did anyone else enter while you were there?
No. And then we left at 11:15 on the dot. Well, I know because Mr. Tuttle made a joke about my returning home before midnight so I wouldn't turn into a pumpkin. He is, or should I say, was, a very charming man. Poor Mr. Tuttle.
That lady is cock-thirsty. You can see how she was stroking the thigh of old Sherlock Holmes, and he was like, that's for true. She knows she wanted to. That sort of bullshit, you know what I mean? Alright, well, it says, go to trial. Alrighty. Let's rock and roll, Bob Dole.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's Court stands in order. Good afternoon. I understand you've been investigating the murder of Melvin Tuttle. Truly a sordid affair. So tell me, who was the murderer? Please choose from either your notebook or the directory.
Alrighty, who was the murderer? The directory. It was Booyah. Swarthmore Henry. Yes.
Yes, indeed. Now tell the court how he murdered Mr. Tuttle.
All right, Trelane, Mr. Q, I'll tell you. Is it he put poison on the contract envelopes that Tuttle sealed? He laced the office tea leaves the previous evening. God, I guess this is why they said it was version 1.0. He put poison on the lip of Tuttle's teacup. He slipped Tuttle a slow-acting poison the previous night. And the answer is he put poison on the contract envelopes.
Absolutely correct. Now, why did Swarthmore murder Tuttle?
Was it Swarthmore had been once engaged to Virginia Monroe and was jealous of Tuttle? Was it he did it at the request of Mr. Cartwright, who had just discovered his wife's infidelities with Tuttle? Or was it Tuttle was blackmailing Swarthmore, who was misusing his power of attorney over certain trust funds in his care? Or perhaps Tuttle threatened to blackmail Swarthmore and Cartwright for stealing funds from their clients? It was blackmailing Swarthmore, who was misusing his power of attorney.
Excellent deduction. Now tell us who was Swarthmore's accomplice. And again, you may choose from your notebook or your directory.
All right. See, like, this is satisfying, man. It's like, I know it's not, like, super action-packed, but it's like, let me tell you, I'm having a way better time playing this game than fucking, like, R-Type, man. Or also, what was it? Sinistron. God, this game's put me through the ringer. Booyah. I would say it's Livingston Cedric, the entertainer. He's always up to no good.
You are correct. Now tell the court what role Mr. Livingston played in the murder of Melvin Tuttle.
Certainly, sir. Was it he was a partner in Swarthmore's scheme to bilk his clients? He provided the poison. He was a partner in Swarthmore's scheme to bilk his clients, and he provided the poison. Or he wrote the note to Mr. Cartwright informing him of his wife's infidelities so that Swarthmore could step in to finish the contracts and poison the envelopes. He was a partner in Swarthmore's scheme to bilk his clients, and he provided the poison. Both one double whammy.
Fine job. Perhaps you should consider a teaching post at the Sherlock Holmes School of Deductive Reasoning. Thank you so much for solving the case. This court is recessed. Until next time, of course.
So, you're actually not Sherlock Holmes in this one. I see. Alrighty, right.
Excellent job on a most difficult case. If we had been doing our best, we could have solved this one in less points, but we're not too far off, are we?
Alright. Beautiful.
Another migraine coming on?
No, I'm merely celebrating the end of the case of the solicitor's solicitor.
An early and tragic demise, wouldn't you agree, Holmes?
I suppose. But I found his rapid rise to be far more significant.
Whatever do you mean?
2.5 years from junior clerk to junior partner in one of the very best legal firms in London. And the man, as we discovered, was no genius. I was fascinated to understand the circumstances of his promotion.
Mrs. Cartwright?
Yes, that connection provided an interesting scenario. What began as a favor to Mr. Cartwright blossomed into an affair with his wife. Tuttle no doubt saw it as a golden opportunity for advancement and used his copious charms on her. Mrs. Cartwright in turn went to work on her husband, showering unstinting praise on Mr. Tuttle. Over a period of time, Mr. Cartwright, who thought the world of his wife, began to believe that a promotion was in order for Melvin Tuttle.
The perfect scenario for murder. Husband discovers truth, takes an unscheduled leave of absence, plans and commits the crime.
In another case, perhaps, but not in this one. You see, both Mr. Cartwright and Mr. Swarthmore were party to the decision to promote Tuttle. Well, why should Swarthmore decide in Tuttle's favor? What did Tuttle have on him?
What made you first suspect Swarthmore?
The envelopes.
The envelopes?
When we discovered that the chinaberry which poisoned Tuttle was found only in traces on the lip of the cup and the stem of the pipe, and even less in the tea and the tobacco, I was particularly interested in the fact that Mr. Swarthmore personally handed the contract envelopes to Tuttle for, shall we say, final licking.
A brilliant if devious plan.
Indeed. The murder weapon, as it were, was mailed away to be consigned to the nearest wastebasket. Unfortunately for Mr. Swarthmore, one was also posted locally. So I had the murderer and the method, but not the motive.
By the way, Holmes, wherever did Swarthmore come by something as rare as chinaberry?
That took a little imagination. And when I discovered it, it helped me to understand the motive. Cedric Livingston supplied the poison. More than likely, he brought it back from one of his sailing stints in the South Seas.
Why would he want to be a party to a murder?
Exactly. You see, the book that Virginia Monroe supplied brought it all into the light. Mr. Swarthmore was using his power of attorney over certain trust funds to undersell land to Mr. Livingston, who in turn either kept it for his own use or had Swarthmore sell back to other trusts at a handsome profit.
With, no doubt, both of them splitting the dividends.
No doubt. Tuttle evidently discovered the scheme, confronted Swarthmore, and was paid off with a promotion. Clearly, Swarthmore and Livingston could not live with the knowledge that Tuttle had unearthed their plot. So, Swarthmore murdered him.
And just as the young cad had turned serious and finally found true love.
Yes, Watson. Love doth teach even asses to dance.
Well said. May I quote you, Holmes?
Indeed, Watson, indeed.
This kind of reminds me of a Seinfeld episode, although this probably came before it. Or maybe it didn't. George's girlfriend dying from licking the poisonous envelopes. Industrial strength glue. Asses to dance. All right. Ba-dum. Save that bull. Save game as. Are we able to do this? Shitty poop. Booyah. That's how we roll. Alrighty then. Let's go to this one now. Boom.
7-letter word rhymes with carob. Well, what brings you to our humble abode on this cold and windy morning, Inspector Gregson?
I'm certain it's not for Mrs. Hudson's tea and crumpets.
Likely not.
It's murder, gentlemen. A very troubling murder.
How unfortunate. Please, tell me everything.
The chief accountant for the Bank of England, Oswald Mason, was found murdered at his home at 10 o'clock last evening by his wife. He seems to have been a simple, hard-working man, and on the surface there seems to be no motive.
Well, what about the Yard? I can't believe Scotland Yard has exhausted all its resources. Why are they turning to me?
I am here at the request of the Exchequer. It seems that Mr. Mason was doing some important work for the Treasury, and the Chancellor wants to make sure that this gentleman's death has nothing to do with the work he was involved in.
Have you any evidence that the murder is related to the Treasury matter?
No. I tried to convince the Chancellor that unless some new evidence turns up, it looks as if Mason's death was just another commonplace murder that the Yard can solve.
Holmes always says there's nothing so unnatural as the commonplace.
You learn well, Watson. Ah! Yeah. And as soon as I finish this vexatious crossword puzzle, I shall look into the matter.
Priorities, eh, big buddy? Scarab, I think, only has 6 letters, though I could be mistaken. Oh, righty then. The case of the banker's final debt, April 11th, 1890. All right. Visit blue, a violet. Booyah. Booyah, booyah. Nothing on file.
She's not in, Governor.
I can see that, Mr. Kent. What a sight. What a pity to see so many lovely ladies turn to fragments and dust. The British Museum.
Well, she might be a bit untidy, but she is a woman of culture, she is.
Yes, I can see that. Do you know where I could find Miss Blue?
Left about 20 minutes ago with a young gent. In quite a hurry, I'd say. I was loading their luggage in the four-wheeler, and I heard the bloke tell the cabbie to head over to Waterloo Station.
Thanks, Alfie. Much obliged. Perhaps I'll hold on to these for evidence.
I think he's going to use those fetishes as fetishes, if you get my meaning. Terrible to see those good ladies reduced to piles of broken bits. It's as if they were victims of Tristan Tate. Okay. Visit the British Museum. All right. Founded in 1773 by Sir Hans Sloane, This great national museum and library is located on Montague Street. My first chambers were located on the same street, just around the corner. Holmes.
Excuse me, I'm eager to see one of your Venus de Milo statues.
So sorry, sir, we sold out of them yesterday.
Do you have the names of the customers?
No, it was just one woman. She bought all 5. Said her name was Mrs. Smith. I am certain I've seen her on stage before, although not under that name. For the life of me, I can't remember what her real name is.
Well, the guy's even more useless than his lily-dipping, not dusting that statue, or that bust, I guess. That guy wasn't doing anything useful at all. Alright, it says, send the Baker Street irregulars to Brown the Mabel. Oh, we're already here. Alright, anything on? Nope. Send them on over. Miss Brown was blubbering, miss. She went on about her little Venus statue that she found busted when she got home last night.
How can I help you, gentlemen?
We understand you were informed of Mr. Mason's death.
Yes. Mr. Kimball gave me the bad news this morning.
Can you think of any reason why anyone would want to murder Mr. Mason?
Oh, no. He was such a nice man. He was tremendously well liked by everyone at work. And he and Mrs. Mason have been so very kind to me ever since my husband died at sea 3 years ago. Why, they've almost been like a family to me. Last week for my birthday, they gave me a lovely little statue. Oh.
There, Mrs. Brown.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking about when I came home from work late last night. My little birthday statue had fallen onto the floor and was broken into bits. It was almost as if it was an omen.
Perhaps we should go, Holmes.
Good thinking, Watson.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. It's just that this is all so very difficult.
You told us quite enough, Mrs. Brown. We'll just show ourselves out.
Stiff upper lip.
Yeah, it's a good thing they got out of there when they did. It's always painful watching a woman ugly cry, especially if she's a redhead. No, I'm just bullshitting around. Alrighty, visit the Everson & Co. gift shop. Everson & Co. gift shop. Watson claims that Everson & Co. has the finest assortment of stationery and small gift items in London. Well, off we go.
We're investigating the murder of Mr. Oswald Mason.
I can assure you, you'll not find any murderers here, sir.
Good heavens, if it were only that simple. No, you see, among Mr. Mason's papers was a receipt from this shop dated 31 March. Do you have a record of what he purchased?
Well, let me see. Ah, here you are. Well, the man did have a sense of the popular. He purchased 2 Venus de Milo statues. It appears we delivered them both for him.
Might you tell me where they were sent?
One to Rose Mason at his home address. The other to a Mabel Brown on Tottenham. Oh, do you suppose he was having a dalliance?
This time I'm not supposing anything. By the way, I do so adore the Venus de Milo. I might be interested in purchasing one of my own.
Sorry, haven't a one. Sold the last 3 to another gentleman on Wednesday.
Pity.
Perhaps I can get more from the manufacturer.
Who might that be?
J. Small and Company. Have you heard of them?
The name does sound familiar, but I'm not sure. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Billingsley. Good day.
Billingsley. Maybe there could have been murderers hiding in that shop. They never think to check behind the sofa. Alright. Visit Farmer Dahlia. Hopefully it's not a black dahlia. Dahlia Farmer is the former Dahlia Bloom. Her father, Philip Bloom, was knighted years ago by the Queen. He is renowned for his lovely gardens at his home in Devonshire. Bloom and his wife, Cecile, have 5 daughters, each named after a flower. Used to be easy to name people things.
We're terribly sorry about your loss, Mrs. Mason.
There, dear sister.
We know this may be difficult, but we need to hear about last night's events if we're to catch your husband's killer.
Yes, I know. Well, I was here last night for her weekly whist game. She comes every Thursday. Oswald stayed home and worked on some papers from the office. The man had been working very hard lately.
Was he expecting visitors while you were gone?
No, I don't think so. I returned home at 10 o'clock and went into the study and... You tell him, dear. Yeah.
The place was in shambles. Furniture overturned, books strewn about, and in the middle of it all was my poor Oswald!
Ghastly. Who could possibly have wanted to hurt him?
I can't imagine. He was the dearest man in all the world. Why, only last week he bought me a Venus de Milo replica for our anniversary and promised me a special trip. I imagine it was Paris because we went there on a honeymoon where we saw the original Venus. When I saw that statue broken into pieces,
I think that's quite enough for one day, Dr. Watson.
Of course.
Yes, quite a lot of women sobbing uncontrollably. It really quite gets on your nerves, doesn't it? Makes you want to... Oh! Okay. Mason Oswald is next on the list. Booyah, booyah, booyah. Mr. Mason is married to the former Rose Bloom. Her father, Philip Bloom, was... Bloom and his wife Cecilia, 5 daughters. Dahlia, Camellia, Daisy, Lily, and Rose. Rose, where are you, Rose?
Standing guard, Constable Parks?
Yes, sir, Mr. Holmes. Waiting for the yard to make its final inspection, so I'm making certain everything stays just the way I found it last night.
Where was the body found?
Sprawled across the desk it was. You can see the blood stain on the top. The blighter put up quite a fight, I must say.
How was he killed?
Head was bashed in by a statue.
Is there any indication how the murderer got in?
Looks like the upstairs window. It showed signs of forced entry.
And it appears that this is where he exited. There's a palm print and plaster residue.
Yes, and there are pieces of plaster shards in a pile on the floor. Was it you who found the body, Constable?
No, it was his wife. She came home from her sister's and that's when she found him. I was on my nightly rounds and heard her screaming. Then I came in and I saw this mess. I covered up the stiff and promptly had him sent over to Bart's. Then I gathered up the man's papers and took them to the yard.
What about the murder weapon?
Oh, yes. I had that sent over to Murray at the lab.
Where is Mrs. Mason now?
She was taken to her sister Dahlia's. Dahlia Farmer.
Already been there, done that. Alright. Next is the Millbank Prison. Is it under Millbank? Oh, we're already there. Millbank Prison. Booyah. Of late, there is much controversy surrounding Millbank Prison. Maintaining a prison near to the Houses of Parliament has a vociferous consortium of politicians vowing to tear it down by 1893. Once Watson and I nearly arrived on the doorstep of the prison. We had missed boarding the Aurora and had to cross the river by wherry, which landed a stone's throw from the prison's walls. All right.
I'm sorry, but Nat Cook doesn't wish to see you. I hope you understand, but I can't force him.
That's quite all right. I wouldn't care to be responsible for causing the upset of a hardened criminal. Perhaps you can tell me a bit about him.
Nat Cook hasn't been a spot of trouble since he's been here. Keeps to himself, really. But it must make prison life a lot easier to take, knowing you've got £100,000 worth of diamonds waiting for you on the outside.
However did he come upon such incredible wealth?
The DeVries diamond robbery.
Oh, yes, I recall. They were never recovered. Do you suppose he confided their whereabouts to anyone?
Oh, like I said, he didn't talk much. The only confidant he ever had was his cellmate, who was released on Monday.
And who might that be?
A fellow by the name of Errol Hawke. And you should have seen the lady friend he left with. Got all the guards' knickers in a knot, she did. Acted like they'd never seen a woman before. But she was a looker. And I heard tell she could sing like an angel.
Oh, yes, she's a goer. Aye, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, let me tell you, I could make her sing. I could certainly make her sing the song of passion and lust. Quite, indeed. Small Aggie. Small. Oh, bloody hoses. Aggie? Nothing on file?
Mrs. Small, we are interested in obtaining information about the Venus de Milo statues that your company manufactures.
I must say, that certainly has become quite a popular item lately.
We understand they're smashing.
That is precisely what a nice gentleman said when he came in on Wednesday. He didn't mention his name, but he did say that he had a shop in Southampton. He purchased our last 5 and wanted to know where he could get more. I told him the rest had been sold to other shops. He wanted their names, and so I gave them to him.
And who might they be? I wouldn't mind picking up one myself. I've always admired the Venus de Milo.
Evanson and Company, and the gift shop at the British Museum.
How long have you manufactured these particular statues?
My late husband made up 15 of them 3 years ago, but he refused to sell them.
Late? So sorry. When did he die?
A fortnight ago.
Oh, my.
Don't lose any sleep over it, gentlemen. My husband was not a very reputable man. The only person who probably truly missed him after his death was the barman at the Red Bull Inn.
Heartless wench. Why, you deserve to be drug out into the street and shot, you do. How cruel. Don't be cruel to your husband's heart. Visit the Treasury. The Treasury, indeed. The Treasury. The Treasury is located on Downing Street and is also the residence of our esteemed Prime Minister, who has been doing a commendable job of managing England's public revenue. Is it Pliny the Elder or Lord Palmerston?
Sir Adrian, we are investigating the murder of Oswald Mason.
Capable fellow. Bloody inconvenient, this murder.
Inconvenient?
Mason was to have a report for me, dealing with some rather embarrassing irregularities.
Do you feel that his death might have anything to do with his work here at the Treasury?
Well, the investigation was dealing with some rather large sums of money. But a murder, it doesn't make any sense. It won't stop the investigation, only delay it. Besides, all of Mason's papers were accounted for.
What was the nature of Mr. Mason's investigation?
Well, as you know, the Exchequer is responsible for the financial well-being of the empire. We've relied on Bacon & Company to handle many of our investments. Do you know them?
They are one of the largest investment houses in London.
Yes. And 6 months ago, it came to our attention that they are in deep financial straits. They are not in possession of sufficient liquid assets to meet their current liabilities. They had invested in too many securities that were weighing down the London stock market. So, Her Majesty's government and Lionel Foxcroft, the governor of the Bank of England, guaranteed to cover the discredited securities. But when we audited their books, we discovered they had invested in far more securities than they were reporting. Over £1,300,000 worth.
So Mr. Mason was attempting to trace the additional securities?
Exactly.
Have you any idea who is doing the embezzling?
There's little doubt that Bacon & Company's directors, Michael Essex and Mitchell York, were hoping to profit while England slept.
Yes, weighing them down, certainly. Weighing them down like a fat black rapper lady weighs down the weak little tires of an Uber. Okay, well, we've visited the Treasury. Now it is time to go to trial, it says. All right. And we're going to meet Trelane again.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's Court stands in order. A pleasure to see you. I understand you are here to solve the Oswald Mason murder case. Most vexing indeed. So tell me, who was the murderer? Please choose from either your notebook or the directory.
I will tell you who the murderer is. The murderer is none other than Errol Hawke.
Positively correct. Now tell the court, why did he do it?
Did he do it in self-defense? Was it because that Hawk had discovered that Mason had been traveling a dalliance with Violet Blue while he had been serving his prison time? Well, better than Eliza Blue. He had surprised Mason while attempting to steal the Venus, or retribution on behalf of Nat Cook. Nate, probably. Nathaniel? Yeah. The answer is, he had surprised Mason while attempting to steal the Venus.
How right you are! Now, what of Mason's work with the Treasury? What bearing did that have on this case?
Let's see. Is it Mason's audit had uncovered that Bacon and Company's participation in the theft of the DeVry diamonds? Was it because Mason's company had been the insurer of the stolen diamonds? Or because Michael Essex and Mitchell York had attempted to hire Errol Hawk to kill Mason? Well, the answer is D. None whatsoever. It was a red herring from the start.
Quite so. Now tell us, what role did Violet Blue have in this crime?
Did she steal the Venus from Mabel Brown? Did she flee London with Hawk and the stolen property? Did she double-cross Hawk and fled alone with the diamonds? Or was she an accomplice in the original theft of the DeVry diamonds? The answer is she fled London with Hawk and the stolen property.
Flawless deduction! Now tell us how Errol Hawk knew that Mrs. Rose Mason and Mrs. Mabel Brown were in possession of the Venus statues.
All right. Was it because he broke into Evanson and Company gift shop and obtained the names from the register? Is it because the proprietor of Evanson and Company gift shop gave him the information? It was a lucky guess, or he got the information from Aggie Small. It is he broke into the Evanson and Company gift shop.
Very commendable detective work. You have done an exemplary job. The court is recessed. Until next time, of course.
Oh, righty then.
Excellent job on a most difficult case. If we had been doing our best, we could have solved this one in less points, but we're not too far off, are we?
Alright, let's see the case solution.
Well, Holmes, here it is in this morning's Times. Murder solved, diamonds found, Hawk and famous singer arrested. They caught them just as they were boarding the boat for the continent.
It does surprise me that for once Lestrade acted so quickly. After I advised him I'd solved the murder, he rung up his contacts in Dover immediately. It was they who assisted us in closing the final chapter of this case.
Do unravel this one for me, will you, Holmes?
Well, I'm surprised you don't know all the details yourself. You were the one to discover many of the critical clues.
Perhaps, but you tell it so well.
Why, thank you, Watson. It goes like this. The minute Nat Cook heard of the death of his partner, Jonathan Small, he knew he needed to do something to protect the Venus statues from being sold or destroyed. So he confided in his cellmate, Errol Hawk, who was due to be released in 9 days.
How convenient to have a cellmate that was willing to assist him.
But whether or not Hawk planned to split the spoils with Cook, we don't know. We do know that he intended to share them with his lady friend, Miss Violet Blue. In any event, the day after Hawk was released, he went to J. Small and Company.
Only to find that only 5 of the original 15 statues remained. He purchased those 5 and learned from Mrs. Small where the others had been sold.
I thought I was telling this one, Watson.
Of course. So sorry.
No harm done. So, after Hawk and Violet broke the 5 statues into pieces in vain, Hawk devised a scheme to track down the others. His first stop was Evanson and Company gift shop, where he purchased the 3 Venus statues still in stock and learned that the other 2 had been sold. Unable to convince the shop manager to release the names of the other purchasers,
he broke into the shop that night and took down the names and addresses of Mrs. Oswald Mason and Mrs. Mabel Brown from the register.
Go ahead. You tell it, Watson.
Oh, no. Do continue, Holmes.
Fine. That evening, he entered the Mason home through the upstairs bedroom window. He encountered Oswald Mason in the study and a fight ensued. Then, with a swift blow to the head with a statue, not the Venus, he murdered Mr. Mason. He quickly broke open Mason's Venus, discovered that there were no diamonds, and heard the sound of Mrs. Mason returning home. He therefore made a fast retreat through the study window and went to Mabel Brown's straight away. Mercifully, he found no one at home. He located her facsimile of the Venus de Milo, smashed it there, and again he found he'd been foiled.
Then, the next morning, Hawk purchased the 5 pieces from the museum shop, hurried to Violet Blue's flat, and began demolishing the statues.
And as you've no doubt surmised, the diamonds were in the
third of the 5 museum pieces.
You always have had a knack for mathematics, Watson.
Thank you, Holmes. Oh, so it would appear that Scotland Yard was correct in its conclusion that the murder was unrelated to Mr. Mason's treasury assignment.
Yes. Unfortunately, they missed the obvious fact that it was only the Venus for which the burglar had come.
Case closed, Holmes?
Unless you have something more to add, Watson.
Not a thing, Holmes. Crossword?
Yes.
Lovely, aren't they?
What a lecherous man. And he had 3 strikes interrupting Holmes. Looks like somebody else, like Watson, is going to get clubbed over the head with one of those statues. Alright. Save. Poop 2. There we are. Alright. This one shouldn't take too long.
Hits the spot.
Why have you come, Inspector Gregson?
Surely they serve tea at Scotland Yard.
Oh, so sorry. I'm here on behalf of Inspector Lestrade. You see, he needs a little help.
Lestrade? Asking for our help?
He's at his wit's end.
You didn't travel far to arrive there.
Pardon me, sir.
Never mind. What sort of assistance does he require?
He'd like you to solve the Thames murders.
No, I've been following that one in the London Times. 4 bodies found floating in the river over the last week.
5, Dr. Watson. Roland Jacquard was found under the Charing Cross footbridge early this morning.
The stepson of Lord Astley Denham?
That's the chap.
From my understanding, his was a reputation as a mountebank and a ne'er-do-well.
From what I hear, he spent most of his days at the card tables of the Bagatelle Card Club. He was one of the finest whist players in London.
And his nights?
Spent in the drawing rooms and often bedrooms of some of the best families in London.
You mean he was a womanizer?
Well, he wasn't a travelling chambermaid, Watson. What of the other murders, Inspector? Any progress there?
No, but Lestrade is still working on the case.
Oh, that fills me with confidence.
Yes, me too, Mr. Holmes. Well, I must be off. Thank you so much for your assistance.
Before you go, Gregson, do you have the other victims' names?
Oh, thank you for reminding me. Here they are, Mr. Holmes, along with the dates of the murders. I'll slip them right inside your notebook.
I would appreciate it, Inspector. No doubt they will prove useful.
Always thinking, Mr. Holmes, always thinking.
What a twit. An upper middle class twit. Alright. Visit the Bagatelle Club. An exclusive London card club where everyone seems passionate about the game of whist. Let me tell you, I like myself some whist, but when I lose I say, play whist, get pissed. It is said that Colonel Sebastian Moran is a member. Let's go.
Nathan Revell and Mr. Jacquard are both members at the club. Nathan and I are partners and frequently played against Jacquard and his partner, Moran.
Sebastian Moran?
Yes.
How well did the two of you meet their challenge?
It's hard to believe, but at first we won. They're 2 of the best players at the club. But then our luck changed. We couldn't win no matter how good the cards were.
Did they cheat?
Cheat? Of course not. Club members are gentlemen.
Did you have a wager on the game, Mr. Adair?
A small one. A pound or 2, nothing important.
And Revell?
I don't know.
When did you last see Revell?
The night before he died. We were playing against Jacquard and Moran till midnight. We didn't win a game all night. Nathan seemed upset. He and Moran seemed to have a bit of a disagreement.
What about the night Revell was murdered?
I had a drink here with Moran. He said he was waiting for Nathan. When he didn't show, he got upset. He waited till a little before 8 and then left. He told me if Nathan stopped by to tell him to meet him at the Tankerville.
When was the last time you saw Jacquard?
Last night about 8:30. He'd been here since 4:30. He received a postal telegram. After reading it, he jumped from his chair saying he had unexpected business.
Have you seen Morad lately?
Not for the last few days. I understand he's on the continent.
The continent? Yeah, that's already been lost to all the Muslim migrants. Alright. Visit the Elephant and Castle. Elephant and Castle. Wonderful vaudevillian entertainment. I see.
Roland Jacquard was here last night. He picked up Letitia.
How serious was the romance between Miss Garcia and Jacquard?
Well, not as serious as Jacquard would have liked. Letitia is a fun-loving girl. She has lots of admirers, and she knows how to take advantage of it.
Do you know who else she was taking her fun with, so to speak?
Well, there are three who come to mind. Jacquard, but I guess we might say he's no longer in the running.
Marco Escobedo, the pugilist, who seems particularly smitten with her. And Celesta Ogilvy, who is rather a strange bird.
Do you have any idea who might have wanted to kill Jacquard?
No, sir. I've been studying drama all my life, but I only watch it, mate. I don't write it.
Oh, hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Alright. Visit Jacquard Roland. Jacquard! Jacquard! Oh, wow, okay. Roland Jacquard is the stepson of Lord Astley Denham and son of Lady Denham. Lady Denham had been married to Jacques Jacquard, a violent man who died of food poisoning in 1871. It had been rumored that Roland's real father was Lord Backwater, with whom the now Lady Denham had been involved. During her marriage to Jacquard, no public acknowledgement of paternity has ever been made, but there is no mistaking that Roland Jacquard is the spitting image of Lord Blackwater.
I'm usually quite fastidious, but I left everything as I found it this morning. Oh, that poor man.
Did you see Mr. Jacquard last night?
No, lovey, I went home early after leaving dinner out for him and a guest, as he asked.
Interesting.
What is it, Holmes?
A Mauser T11 and a Lancashire pistol. Lancashire has been recently fired. 3 shots.
And the Mauser?
Not in the last day or so.
Mr. Jacquard was quite the gun collector, I can assure you.
Well, Watson, here we have letters of credit totaling thousands of pounds.
My word. And I have merely found his wallet with £140 and a recent playbill from the Elephant and Castle Theatre.
Do you know who Mr. Jacquard was entertaining last night?
No, I don't, Ducky. But I did see something strange this morning. The Persian rug is missing from that corner of the room. I don't know why anyone would want to steal a rug.
Do you know anyone else who might be able to shed light on this?
You might try nosy Mrs. Ivory next door. She's always in everybody's business.
I think that's that same Meaty Mitts lady from before. Reusing actors and actresses. Alright, let's visit Lindsay Kathleen. Nothing on file.
This has all been very difficult. You see, I knew 3 of the victims. Charles Atchard was my solicitor, Roland Jacquard a friend, and Nathan Revell worked for my late husband's firm, Lindsay and Company. For the life of me, I can't imagine why anyone would want to kill them.
Did the victims know one another, Mrs. Lindsay?
Roland and Charles were friends. In fact, Roland introduced me to Charles. I suppose Charles must have met Revell when he went to the firm to handle my business affairs, but he never mentioned it. I don't think Roland knew Revell at all. I can't imagine how he would.
Interesting indeed. Send the Baker Street irregulars to Murray H.R. What do they say? The old coat was just leaving and gave us this note for some bloke named Whitson. Dear Whitson, I knew you would be coming around, but I couldn't wait. Examining the evidence from 5 murders in such short order has just a pile of very expensive clothes minus underwear. Imagine, the man could afford silk shirts and French shoes, but didn't even buy himself a simple pair of skivvies. Whitson, what is the world coming to? Yours, H.R. Murray.
Well, Watson, what did old H.R. have to say?
Nothing.
Nothing? I'm surprised.
He had nothing to say because he isn't in.
That is unfortunate.
Interesting. Maybe they didn't want to pay old H.R. Murray actor to say Whitson again. Well, there you go. All right. Oh my goodness, this is a great game. Do you know where we're going now? We are going to see old Porky. Oh, Porky.
Heard anything about the Thames murders?
Well, 2 of the victims was regulars here. Cyril Maud and Curtis Twiggs.
Twiggs?
Yeah, Twiggs. The one the police identified as Leo Shepherd. Twiggs and Maud were partners, part of the Moriarty gang. Word had it that they were Moran's strong-arm boys. Twiggs was the knife man, and Maud was a deadly aim with a pistol. Together, they made quite a mean pair.
Any word on why they were murdered?
No, nothing. Although, after the murder, word had it that Moran wanted to find Twiggs. No reason, but then Moran don't have to give one.
When did you last see them?
The night Maud was murdered. He and Twiggs were sitting here, drinking their dinners. Around 8 o'clock, Moran comes in, talks to them, and leaves. Maud checks over his pistol. They drained their pints and dashed off.
Pints and pistols, pints and pistols. All right. The Tankerville Club. The Tankerville Social Club serves the best prime rib in London. Watson, however, swears that they water down their drinks. Card playing is taken most seriously here. Hopefully they get pissed while playing West.
Roland Jacquard had dinner here on the evening of May 30th.
He arrived at 7:30 p.m. and was joined by Mrs. Kathleen Lindsay. He ordered a bottle of Gros Rose, 76, to accompany their duck.
I'm not interested in what they ate, but I am curious to know when they left.
They left at midnight.
Did anyone else join them?
Colonel Sebastian Moran at 9:10. He had one drink with them and left at 9:45.
Was that the last time you saw Jacquard?
No. The last time I saw Mr. Jacquard was June 1. He spent most of the afternoon in the game room, came into the dining room around 8:30. He had dinner alone and left at 9:30.
Thank you. This has been most illuminating.
As illuminating as an atom bomb blast destroying half of 2 Japan cities. All right, let's go to trial. Trelane, we're back.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's Court stands in order. I understand you're ready to unravel the Thames murders. A terribly complicated case indeed. Tell me who murdered Nathan Ravel. Please choose from either your notebook or the directory.
The murderer is none other than Maud Cyril.
Positively correct. Now tell the court, why did Maud murder Ravel?
Was it Ravel wouldn't share the securities with him? He was ordered by Sebastian Moran. He did it in self-defense, or Ravel had cheated Maud at whist. The answer is he was ordered by Sebastian Moran. That's a bastard.
So, Maud was merely a henchman. Now, who put an end to his unsavory life?
I am terribly sorry, but I do believe it was the one and only Curtis. Oh, Curtis, my commenter, why'd you do it?
Excellent deduction. Now, why did Twiggs kill Maud?
Was it Maud was planning to turn Twiggs over to Scotland Yard for the murder of Nathan Revel? Was he was ordered by Sebastian Moran? He did it in self-defense? Or to take the embezzled securities for himself? It was D, to take the securities.
Brilliant reasoning. Now tell the court who murdered Charles Attard.
Oh, how terrible. How terrible indeed. It was Curtis again. Oh, how terrible.
Twiggs was a busy and brutal man, wasn't he? Tell me, why did he do it?
Perhaps he can save himself. He did it in self-defense. Attard was planning to turn Twiggs over to Scotland Yard for the murder of Cyril Maud. Attard was blackmailing Twiggs, who had pulled off a successful... Oh my god, version 1.0, huh? A successful robbery of Drummond's bank, or he was ordered to by Moran. The truth is, he did it in self-defense. His saving grace.
I suppose Attard was no match for Twiggs in a gunfight, but clearly someone was. Tell the court who finally murdered Curtis Twiggs.
Oh, Curtis, poor Curtis. I shall show them who murdered poor Curtis. It was none other than Jacquard Rowland.
Superb deduction. Now, what was Jacquard's motive?
Was it he had discovered that Twiggs was having a relationship with Letitia Garcia? To retrieve the embezzled securities from Moran, he was planning to turn Twiggs over to Scotland Yard for the murder of Cyril Maud and Charles Attard, or retribution for the murder of his friend Attard. It was to retrieve the embezzled securities from Moran.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave. Now please tell the court who murdered Roland Jacquard.
Why, it was none other than that vile wretch, Marco Escobedo.
Bravo! Now, what was Escobedo's motive?
He had discovered Jacquard's plot to rig the boxing match to steal the embezzled securities. He was ordered by Moran, or jealousy over Jacquard's relationship with Letitia Garcia. Oh, it was jealousy indeed.
Exemplary work on a most difficult case. The court is recessed. Until next time.
Well, that's not going to happen because this is the last in the series.
Excellent job on a most difficult case. If we had been doing our best, we could have solved this one in less points, but we're not too far off, are we?
All right, let's see the case solution.
Well, Holmes, you've done it again.
I believe we've done it, Watson.
Oh, yes. But the twists and turns of this one still puzzle me. Would you mind...
Elaborating? Not at all. Nathan Revel was a simple, hard-working fellow whose one passion became his undoing.
Whist?
Indeed. Once he began to play with the likes of Moran and Jacquard, his fate, I'm afraid, was sealed.
Do you suppose he was cheated?
Out of his money and his life. You see, by cheating Revel at the card table, Moran was able to force him to participate in his scheme to embezzle from Lindsay and Company. And once he had Revel under his thumb, he enlisted Charles Attard, who was Mrs. Lindsay's lawyer. Through him, he was able to gain access to the firm's confidential records, and thus he had all he needed to execute his embezzlement scheme.
I suppose Mr. Revel's suicide note would suggest he had a change of heart.
Precisely, Watson. And on the evening he was to take the embezzled securities to Moran, Revel wrote that suicide note and left the documents in his room for Patterson to find.
So that's how Maud and Twiggs fit in?
Yes. Moran sent them to kill Revel and retrieve the stolen securities. Maud, the gunman, shot Revel, and he and Twiggs dropped the body into the Thames. But holding £6,000 was too much temptation for Twiggs. He killed Maud, took the securities and the Mauser T11 and went into hiding.
So then Attard went looking for Twiggs.
And unfortunately for him, he found him. Twiggs killed him with the gun he'd taken from Maud.
What made you first suspect that it was Jacquard that finally put an end to Curtis Twiggs?
I knew from the moment we discovered the securities, the Mauser and the Lafaux show at Jacquard's home. It all fit together, an all too common tale of dishonesty and betrayal. The only thing that didn't fit was the death of Roland Jacquard.
I suppose if he'd been killed for the securities, we wouldn't have found them on his desk, would we?
Very observant, Watson. You see, this was a death due not to his criminal intrigues, but to his romantic intrigue with one Letitia Garcia. There was another man who believed she belonged to him.
Marco Escobedo?
Yes.
I've always thought it would be rather risky to become romantically involved with a lady friend of a pugilist.
Words to live by, Watson.
I shudder to think what happened that night.
It is a grisly thought. Because after Jacquard murdered Twiggs and brought Miss Garcia back to his home, and into his bedroom, I might add, they were interrupted by Escobedo. Judging by the clothing strewn about the room, poor Mr. Jacquard must have been in the nude when Escobedo attacked and murdered him.
That would explain the skivvies.
Or lack thereof. Escobedo must have quickly dressed the body, not showing the same care as the fastidious Jacquard. He then rolled the body up in the bedroom rug and dumped it into the Thames. An ironic resting place, to be sure, since he knew nothing of Jacquard's involvement with the other murders.
Positively brilliant, Holmes.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
He always has his catchphrase. Alrighty. Save. And now I have proof. Skwatter of the Sprites Templar with his 3 poops. Which is what I'm probably going to be taking after playing this game. Alrighty. Well, that is the end of this series, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. I have been Skwatter of the Sprites Templar, and I am out. Peace. Let's see, how do I stop recording? This is on OBS, as I said. Is it...